If you could tell yourself one thing at that age, what would you say to yourself?
I would say to myself that when you find yourself in an adversarial situation where someone's giving you a hard time, making your life miserable, it's counterproductive to hate the agent or the person that's providing you with the adversarial situation.
What makes you respect my dad? You know, if you do feel like you respect him.
Well, Steve is tremendously intellectual.
Yeah, I do respect Steve. I respect him because I have to respect. I love him, and of course I respect him. He's courageous as hell. He is courageous as hell.
He's whining. What's he want? Oh, your mom deprived him of his prey. Okay, my name is Steve DeWitt, and I am the father of Kyle DeWitt, who is conducting this interview.
What role has writing played in your life?
Well, writing really is my calling, I would say. Writing is the medium that I like to express myself in the most. I've always had a facility with words, language, and I started writing when I was 9 years old, or maybe even earlier, when my mom used to read me fairy tales. I used to write different endings for them or write a sequel to them and then read them to her.
He's got, I've always sort of envied his straight A background, for example. But, more than that, he's always been very good at storytelling and also expressing, his ways and means of, communication are really quite at a high level.
My dad, the storyteller. That's how he's been my entire life. My family never kept videos or photographs, so all I know about our past is what my dad's been able to explain with his own words. That's probably the reason why playing tennis together has been so rewarding for me.
Who's that?
This documentary was a journey for me to understand my dad. But to first understand someone, you have to understand their past.
I was born in Washington, D.C.
And when did you move, or why did you move to Germany and when?
My father, who was himself born in Germany, is from Berlin, emigrated to the States in 1937. After World War II, in which he was an American soldier, started working for the CIA and therefore worked in Langley, Virginia as an analyst. And he was offered a job to go work at the headquarters of CIA, which is in Munich, for Germany at the time. So in 1955, when I was 2 years old, we moved, my sister, my mother, and my father moved to Munich, which then later he was offered a position as the chief of the bureau in Bonn as a political correspondent, which is what he did for many years. Well, the home life in the middle school years was not the greatest. My parents separated when I was 6 years old. My mother remarried when I was 8, and so happened that the stepfather that I got was physically and verbally abusive personality, had a very quick temper, and so we were continually at odds. The home life was very difficult because you never knew what was going to set him off. You always kind of walked on eggshells because anything could lead into a temper flare-up and more abuse. So it was not very pleasant. When I was 15 years old, I finally stood up to him, and you know, I fought back, essentially, and we had a pretty big fight in which he got the worst of it, I must say. And but it wasn't like I wanted to hurt him, you know. It was just that I wanted him to stop abusing me. He did never lay a hand on me after that, but they basically put me in a boarding school from that point on. It was a boarding school for difficult boys, I guess, or unruly boys, and that environment was also abusive, verbally and physically. And so after about 2 weeks, I ran away from there and went back to Munich. This was in a town outside of Munich in the countryside. And I went to a concert of this band that I was friends with, and found out there that the girlfriend that I had at the time had taken up with another guy. So it was pretty much a downer at that point, and I didn't know where to go from there. I couldn't go back to that school, I couldn't go home. I didn't see anything for myself in the future. That very night, in that venue where the concert was, which was up in the 5th floor of a building, I jumped out of the window and survived. And so then after that, my parents did take me back, and I lived in the basement of their house for another 2 years, and then I moved out when I was 17.
Well, what interests you, Kyle, is like with your dad and I, and with Becky, and there's a couple of names I'm just going to go say them because I just don't want to. But I can say Beck's name whenever I want because we're just all tight. And I know that our paths had parallel. We have parallel paths. Us three, for example. I know that we went through relative stuff, all three of us. And there's something about we're in the same soul group. That means our state of consciousness, our awareness on the soul level, which is the real level, is relative. That's why we have so much in common. That's why we can talk about things. And so what you're saying, it sounds like we went through the same stuff. Of course. We need to have those times that put our back up against the wall so that we can grow. But I could easily be dead. Easily was gonna, if I didn't find Eckankar, dead. Just, you know, hanging in the wrong circles, just lost. I was a lost sheep.
Do you feel like a lot of seekers are like that?
I think all seekers are lost sheep.
Rented a little kind of a studio room, which was above a driveway in a old part of town. But it was the part of town where all the artists and the students and all the, you know, spiritual things were happening, so that was a great place for me to be at the time. Okay, how did I stumble upon the path of Eckankar that I am on right now? When I was 16 years old, I left the Lutheran Church, which is how I grew up, and I became a seeker. Essentially, I had questions that I wanted answers to that the Christian religion didn't provide for me. So I looked into various other religions such as Buddhism, Zen, the Sikh religion, Hinduism, Scientology, Rosicrucianism, Sant Mat, but none of them actually gave me the answers that I was looking for. Eckankar currently is a spiritual organization as well as a spiritual teaching with its headquarters in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. So in this macrobiotic tea house, I met this friend who told me about Eckankar. And once I had the fortune to borrow some books from him and read the books of the founder of Eckankar, Paul Twitchell, that's when I found my answers. To understand it and to follow it is a very big change in your worldview of how you look at the world and reality. My advice for today's youth would be to not take at face value what they are told about religious concepts. When I found Eckankar, it was like stepping into my house. It was like I'm home. You know, everything I read in the literature, everything I experienced myself, clicked with me. It was like, okay, yeah, this is it, this is it, this is it. And so that's why my advice for the youth of today is try and find something where you can say, this is it, this is what I believe is the truth. You know, this clicks with me. And when you have that, it's not scary.